But then comes Philip of Spain. So they met and then they were married 2 days later. And let me tell you something. So when she first saw him, she was over the moon with this man. She was like, oh my God, he is so hot. Yes. But the sad thing is that he was not attracted to her at all. I know, it sucks. Like, that's so sad. He was like, but he did it for his country and he married her anyway. I do my best to fact check everything I share, but please don't take any action based on the information here. And definitely don't quote me in your dissertation. Also, some viewer discretion is advised. Some stories may include graphic or potentially triggering content, so please take care when listening. And if I laugh at any point, just know it's never at the history or the people involved. Sometimes I just get a little awkward, or the drama is too wild not real. Hello, everyone. It is Elsie May. I've never done that before. I don't know why I did that. Hello, guys. Welcome. It is Elsie May, and you're listening to History in High Heels. Woo! Today's pump. I'm wearing like a kitten heel, black pointed pump with an ankle strap. Cute. Anyway, how are we doing, guys? I'm very excited because today is the second Halloween episode. Thank you. So today we're going to be talking about a queen, and I'm very excited because it's from the Tudor era. I freaking love the Tudor era. It's so juicy. As a child, in primary school, shall we say, did you ever run into the toilet with your friends, switch off the lights and look into the mirror and say Bloody Mary and try to say it 3 times? Did anyone try and do that? Because I did. You would say Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. And then I would be like, nah, guys, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing that. Bye-bye. I would leave. But what would happen if you did say that? What happens if you did get to the 3rd time? Well, I guess the legend from, my childhood knowledge was that you would see like a ghost in the mirror. And, I've heard other tales, and sometimes you would see a woman holding a baby or a woman screaming. Like, this was all part of the tale. This was the one that I was like, but well, what was that? So it got me thinking for Halloween. I was like, what was that? It was scary at the time. Super scary. So, let me know if you've actually heard of that before. Leave it in the comments. But also, then it got me thinking, who was this woman? Who was she? Hopefully today I can straighten some things out for you and maybe clear up some confusions over who this girly pop was and how she got the name Bloody Mary. Because it can't be good. Called Bloody Mary. Let me just tell you guys, I know that you've heard of Henry VIII. Okay, I know that you have. So anyway, he actually is in the story today because he's Mary, this diva, Bloody Mary's. It's her dad. That's who Henry VIII is. So we're going to go all the way back to the Tudor time. And this was in the 1500s. So we're way back there. We're going to go back in time to Mary's birthday. Okay, she was born on the 18th of February in 1516 in Greenwich Palace. She was born to Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon. Now, that was Henry VIII's very first wife, before he became a womanizing loser. Or who knows, maybe he was always a womanizing loser. I don't know. I'm not a historian. Anyway, so they actually had a huge problem with fertility. They had huge problems. Henry VIII and Catherine, they could not get pregnant. They were really, really struggling for years. Okay, so then when Mary came along and she was
born, she was birthed into the world, they were like so relieved. They were like really relieved that, you know, they had a baby. Yay! Like, you know, it was obviously a huge deal. But Henry over here, you know, the baby came out and he was like, oh, okay. I mean, that's fine, but I kind of wanted a boy. Anyway, he definitely wanted a boy, like 1,000%. And that will come very clear as the story progresses. Apparently he like adored Mary anyway, and even gave her the nickname of calling her his pearl of the world, which is kind of cute. Mary's childhood was a bit of a whirlwind. She was a toddler and she was already like set up to marry somebody when she was of age. They were like, okay, when you're of age, you're going to marry the Spanish prince. But then it changed to a French one, and I guess like power got juggled between some countries, France, Spain, Italy. So she was dealing with all of that. But she was being groomed to be a diplomatic asset. So, yeah, she was also fluent in French, Spanish, and Latin, and she liked to dance. She was good at music. She had great etiquette. And her mum, Catherine of Aragon, her mum really believed in Mary. She was like, you're going to be a star one day. You're going to be queen. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying that. But she was really like had high hopes for her daughter. She fully believed that she would be queen one day. So when Mary was 9, she was made Princess of Wales by her dad, Henry VIII. But anyway, she was sent to Wales to like rule on her father's behalf. Although it's still very known that Henry was really wanting a son, and Mary at the time was his only heir. This is where we get into the main drama, okay, because the drama really starts to kick off in 1525 to like 1526. And this is because Henry VIII meets Anne Boleyn. And she was a young lady in waiting at the court, and they just became infatuated with her. And Catherine was kind of pushed to the sideline. Yeah, Henry VIII was kind of like, ooh, who's this? Who's this? This kind of turns Mary's world completely on its head, completely flips. Her father then decides to divorce her mother. Hello. And he decides, when I tell you I read this, he decides to set himself up as supreme head of the Church of England. He was like, I'm in charge. I'm the head. What are you going to do? What are you going to say? What are you going to... And by the way, that is a huge thing. Like, that is a massive thing. At this point in England, there was a huge thing, and there is still a huge thing between Catholics and Protestants. So that was very much in England at the time. It was very on brand for the Tudors. You know, one minute they were like Catholics, and the next minute, you know, the lines would change. Whoever's in charge could literally just pick if the country was Catholic or Protestant. It was just, people would flip just like that and change their beliefs. So that's very much what this was. So at this time, it was a Catholic country. So at this time, there was Catholic views, and Henry VIII was a Catholic. Mary, who we're talking about, was Catholic. Catherine of Aragon, all Catholics. And so Henry VIII has just deemed himself supreme head of the Church of England. So I'm pretty sure he can't just do that, but okay. So he declares Mary as illegitimate, which is rude. Mary got stripped of her title of Princess of Wales. Like, what is that about, man? I mean, her dad's being a dick. Her dad's being a dick. So where's she gonna go? She's obviously gonna go to her mum. So her mum becomes her like proper lifeline. They are super, super close. And Catherine is really guiding her and protecting Mary like as best she can. Mary is her pride and joy. But she's also like shut out of court. Like, Catherine of Aragon is shut out of court. Mary's kind of left to her own devices. She's kind of learning how to navigate her father's shifting anger, and she's seeing his betrayals like firsthand, and it was really painful for her. Like, she was literally watching her father move on from her mother. It was a very confusing time for her, very heartbreaking. So anyway, Mary's relationship with Henry VIII, her dad, is complicated. His obsession with a male heir was very much an obsession. His new marriage left her in a bit of a limbo between love and fear and frustration, because she loved her dad. Allegedly, like, I guess. She loved her dad. But when it came to accepting Anne as a queen, she was like, I'd rather not. And when it came to recognizing the religious supremacy, she was like, I would rather not. She wouldn't obey him. So by around 1531, Mary's roughly like 15, and she's dealing with a lot. Okay, not just the mum and dad drama, but she's having like menstruation issues. And it was affecting her physically, emotionally. There was a lot of social changes, religious changes, and yeah, she began leaning on her faith a lot. She really leaned on her faith, and she started praying a lot. Note that for later, it's very important. This was the same year that the Pope orders Henry to stop seeing Anne until the divorce is resolved. So although he had chose to divorce Catherine of Aragon, like, it hadn't gone through yet, it wasn't finalized yet. So the Pope was like, can you stop like hooking up with Anne until like the divorce has been settled and the divorce has gone through? Henry was like, wait, I'm the supreme head now. I don't need your permission. Mr. Pope. And then moves into Catherine's former chambers and starts, I guess, acting like the queen. So Henry and Anne Boleyn were together, and they did have another daughter called Elizabeth. So yes, England started shifting towards a Protestant reform. And this is because, as I said before, it was Catholic, but Henry was given it and eyeing up the new Protestant reforms. Catherine and Mary remained devout Catholics. Mary is learning from a very young age that to be royal, not only do you need to care about crowns, but you need to survive the court dramas. So here we go. Baby Henry over here, guys. Apparently he used to be attractive. And I'm sorry, but I just can't believe that. Like, see when you know all the facts? This guy is a horror story itself. I could talk about him for Halloween, in my opinion. So his wandering eye, naughty boy, strikes again. And it's with one of Anne Boleyn's lady-in-waiting. It's Jane Seymour. Jane Seymour enters the group chat. So we're going to speed up a little bit, okay? It's January 7th and it is 1536. Now, I've got some sad news for you, okay? Because Mary was really close to her mum, but her mum dies. Yeah, it's really sad. It's likely to be from cancer, but yeah, Mary was truly devastated. She was just very close to her mum, super close to her mum, so she was obviously devastated from this. Henry apparently didn't even let her go to the funeral. That is cold. Like, I hate him already just from that. Plot twist, guys. Plot twist. I don't know if you saw this coming, but months later, Anne Boleyn is accused of treason and adultery, and officially it's incest and betrayal. But realistically, it was Henry. Like, let's be 100% here. Henry was kind of done with it. He was like, okay, yeah, it's been a few months. I'm over it. By May 1536, Anne was gone. She was executed. She was beheaded because Henry was done with her. Anne Boleyn was 35 when she died. Mary finally sees that she gets her chance. So she's starting to beg her dad to take her back. And at first Henry's like, But then eventually he submits. She's like, okay, I need to get my way back in. Let's just accept the religious changes. And Henry, he welcomes her back. He gives her fancy chambers, some land, and a return to court life. And court is where the drama happens. Jane Seymour and Henry. That is apparently happening. And she gets along surprisingly well with Jane Seymour, and she's also getting on with Elizabeth. So the two sisters start to bond, which is lovely. We love that. And then Jane gives Henry the one thing that he has been longing for. It's a son. Oh. So Henry got a son, okay, and his name was Edward. And it was 2 weeks later, unfortunately, when Jane actually died from childbirth. It was called childbed fever. And that was really, again, devastating. And it was devastating for Mary because she actually really liked Jane Seymour. So she just got attached to this other woman after her mum died. And now that woman has passed away as well. Really, really tragically. So Henry mourns. And he's upset because his wife's just died. It's just for a little bit, though, because then Anne of Cleves comes along and he's like, I feel better now. I mean, I don't know, but I'm just saying that. This is famously known as the catfish marriage. Okay? Because Henry actually married her before seeing her. And it was like based off a portrait. And then when she came in, he was like, yuck. And did not like her. He didn't like that. And the two actually only stayed together for 6 months, and then he got the marriage annulled. So, like, I'm sorry, but that sucks. Like, what do you see? Do you see why I do not like this man? She was literally picked for marriage from Henry by the portrait. And yeah, he didn't like what he saw in person, so he dumped her. She came from Germany, so she was like, oh, I just want to stay here. So she stayed in England, and her and Mary actually get along very well. Because, guys, remember, this episode is about Bloody Mary. This is just like an important string of events that happened in Mary's life. Moving on quite quickly to the next wife. Here we go. We've got Catherine Howard. She's 17. She's bubbly. She's 9 years younger than Mary. And Mary thinks, allegedly, I guess, that she is childish and she's immature. And Catherine thinks that Mary is disrespectful. And they clash. Obviously, they're going to clash. Eventually, Catherine is executed as well for treason. We're going to fact check this. So it says Henry VIII was 49 years old when he married Catherine Howard, who was a teenager, likely 15 to 18 years old. Yes, Catherine was beheaded less than 2 years later, and that's just on the AI overview on Google. So tensions were obviously going to run really high between Mary and Henry because Mary, not happy with him at all. Finally, we're on to the sixth and final wife, Catherine Parr. She manages to create a slightly calmer family vibe, and, you know, her and Mary are fine. Parr's only 3 years older than Mary, but at this point, Mary's like, I'm over it. Like, the whole stepmom thing, I'm over it. But, you know, you're not my mum, but sure, fine. If we have to, we have to. This is where Henry VIII's health starts to fail because it takes a nasty turn. He's involved in a bad jousting accident, and it left him with these like huge ulcers on his legs, and they festered and they got really infected, and they were really, really smelly. Like, he had smelly legs. Like, the stench was so bad that apparently you could smell it from rooms away. By January 1547, Henry and his smelly legs were dead, and his 9-year-old son Edward became the king. So it was Edward's reign now, and to be honest, it was kind of a nightmare for Mary. Yeah, it's not what she wanted at all. Edward's government was like hardcore Protestant, which, if you remember, Mary's like a hardcore Catholic. Now, due to Edward's government being so incredibly hardcore Protestant, they rip out Catholic tradition. And as you can guess, this is going to cause some problems. So Latin Mass was banned. Stained glass, it was smashed. Not good. Crucifixes burned. And the Book of Common Prayer was forced on everyone. So Mary, being Mary, doubles down on her faith. She's doing Mass like 4 times a day. She prays for hours, allegedly. She would just pray and pray for hours. But then she kind of hit a point where she was like, uh-oh, did I go too far? Did I go too far? And she was getting a bit nervous because she was like, actually, what happens if they imprison me? I guess she was like, I've kind of annoyed the wrong guy. So there was like a few little plans, like she was coming up with a plan to flee, and then that kind of fell through. So time goes on, and in 1552, Edward actually gets sick. He gets unwell, unplanned, I know. And he gets smallpox and measles, and it completely destroys his health. So he writes a succession and cuts out both of his sisters. And this is basically like him saying who's going to take over, who's heir after he passes away. So he's like, none of you get this throne. And he wants Lady Jane Grey, who's a Protestant, as queen. And she popped up in my research. I was like, who are you? She was actually one of the granddaughters of Henry VIII. She was related to the throne. Edward was inviting both of his sisters to like come and visit him because he was so unwell. So they were like, oh, gotta go see my brother. And they were on their way. They were riding to Edward. Like, you know, Mary was on this trip to visit her brother, and they were intercepted. They were intercepted by a Catholic supporter. This diva rode hard to catch up to Mary. And basically, this Catholic supporter was like, don't go visit Edward. It's a trap. The drama. Please. So, Mary's back in East Anglia, and she rallies her supporters. Fast forward a little bit to July 6th, 1553, and Edward, remember, Edward the sick one, the king, he dies, and he was only 15. Lady Jane Grey is proclaimed queen, but Mary rallies her supporters, she storms London, and she is crowned queen. Are we following? And this is quite sad because Lady Jane Grey, she only lasts 9 days on the throne. So, fast forward now. Now Mary is 37 and she's determined to restore Catholicism. Allegedly, it was almost like a relief. To secure her legacy, she really felt, I guess, that she needed a husband or a baby. Or both. And there was a few bachelors, but there was not that much choice. But then comes Philip of Spain. So they met, and then they were married 2 days later. And let me tell you something. So when she first saw him, she was over the moon with this man. She was like, oh my God, he is so hot. Yes. But the sad thing is that he was not attracted to her at all. I know, it sucks. Like, that's so sad. He was like, but he did it for his country and he married her anyway. This marriage was unpopular for England. Like, people did not like it. The people feared foreign influence, and rebellion starts to rise. The rebellion rises, and this is called the Wyatt's Rebellion. Why? Because it is led by Sir Thomas Wyatt the Young. And this, I'm not going to lie, this doesn't really end well for them. So the rebellion rises, and Mary basically completely crushes it with a fiery speech at London's gates. And unfortunately, these rebels were executed. According to my research, around 90 people were executed. The nobles were beheaded, and the commoners were hung, drawn, and quartered. And then Elizabeth was imprisoned because she was suspected as well. Mary is, I guess, like living her life. She's, making her country all Catholic again, killing anyone that doesn't agree with her. She loves Philip. Philip tolerates her. And then tragedy happens for her. She has pregnancy issues. So do you remember when I said at the start she was like 15, she was having really bad like menstruation issues, a lot of pain, things like that? Well, she ran into some issues there because she really wanted to get pregnant. And she was having the symptoms of pregnancy. She was gaining weight. She had morning sickness. And she had a few unfortunate miscarriages. And then she was sure that she was going to have a baby. And then it fell through. And then there was lots of complications. And England was like waiting for a child to inherit the throne. They were waiting. It was a lot of pressure for Mary to produce an heir. And Mary believed at one point that she was having contractions. She believed that she was fully pregnant. They were waiting. She was having contractions. So they prepared the chamber for her. And she was going to give, she was told, like, we think you're going to give birth in the next few days. Her belly, it was moved, like it was out. She had all the symptoms. Time passes. A few days. No baby. A few weeks. No baby. And the whole season passes and there is no baby. And her stomach starts to go back in. And I guess it was a phantom pregnancy. I guess she had a few. It's so sad. And then rumours were starting to circulate in England. Everyone knows your business when you're the queen. Like, everybody knew that she had menstruation issues, which is kind of weird, but okay. So it's just after summer in 1555, and Mary returned to court alone. So he'd left her. She was abandoned and she was humiliated in the eyes of her people, and she became depressed. Her religious persecutions then accelerated in 1555 onwards. I guess she felt like her religion was all she had. Then it gets bad, guys. It gets really bad, because this is where the fires begin. From 1555, Mary restores Catholic worship in England. So Latin Mass is back. The churches, they're decorated. Many Catholics rejoice, but Protestants resist. They're like, no, we never wanted this. So Mary revives heresy laws, and the punishment for heresy? Burning at the stake. Basically, the heresy laws are where it's illegal to teach or practice the wrong religion. So Mary's putting that law right back down. Well, I said that this is where the fires begin. I know that you might have heard burning at the stake, where people get burnt alive or set on fire. It was used in the witch trials. That's maybe, if you've heard it, that's where it's from. So the first burnings targeted leading Protestant preachers. So let me just paint you a really ugly picture. Crowds gathered. Because remember, public executions at the time were classed as entertainment. It would be dramatic and shocking. And it would also be like a warning for people not to disobey. Victims were tied to wooden stakes. Kindle was piled high the fire was lit, and at first the flames would lick their feet. The heat surges and rises to 800, 1,000, 1,200 degrees. The flesh blisters and blackens instantly. You can hear the bones crack from the heat. Some die from the smoke inhalation, but others scream until their voices are gone. Now, another thing that lingered was the smell of burning flesh. It carried for hours and hours. Witnesses would faint, vomit, and flee from terror. And yet, others cheered, convinced it was God's justice. I guess Mary herself believed that she was saving souls, but for Protestants, it was a nightmare. And by 1558, around 280 people were burned alive. Thousands fled into exile. Some accounts said that she took satisfaction in punishing her enemies. Apparently, Mary's decisions were popular. The public agreed. And this is where Mary earns her name, Bloody Mary, all thanks to John Foxe's The Book of Martyrs, one of the most widely read books in the English language. And this book spreads her grisly tales of the burnings, and her reputation is sealed in fire and in blood. At first, the public allegedly were giving like a serves them right, serves the Protestants right kind of vibe. But then as time went on and the execution started dragging on and getting more extreme, some sympathy kind of shifted towards the victims. And that's when Mary's reputation really started to go down the drain. It really started to sour. Mary's reign really starts to go down the drain here. In 1558, England loses the Battle of Calais in France, and it's humiliating for them. And it stung. That was a stinger. And it was basically the nail in the coffin, because people saw it as a national humiliation. And it was the final blow to Mary's image. And Mary thinks she's pregnant again, but it turns out it's actually an illness. And people, I guess historians, think it's likely to be ovarian or uterine cancer. So that would make sense as to her previous issues that she'd been having with it. She made her last wishes, and she wished for her mother to be moved next to her where she was going to be buried. That unfortunately didn't end up happening for her. November 17th, 1558, Mary dies at aged 42. As I said, she really wanted to be buried with her mum, and her mum, Catherine of Aragon, if you remember right at the start of this video, but instead she was buried at Westminster Abbey, eventually sharing the tomb with her sister Elizabeth. Here's the thing though, because that concludes Mary's lifetime that she was alive for. But here's the thing. Mary isn't the only Tudor with blood on her hands. Henry VIII had hundreds executed. Edward's regimen prosecuted Catholics. Elizabeth, her sister, killed 200 Catholics and signed off the death of Mary, Queen of Scots. So here's a question. Who do we remember as bloody? Just Mary? Just Mary? Why? Now people are looking back on this story and they're having sympathy for Mary. She had a hardship. They're saying that she wasn't a monster, so I've heard. She wasn't a monster. She was desperate. She was desperate to restore her old faith. She was desperate for an heir. She was desperate for some sort of stability in a kingdom that never gave her peace. She really wanted love, and she really wanted faith. and she really wanted stability, as I've said. All that history remembers is the smoke, the screams, and Bloody Mary. So here's the thing. Legend says if you whisper her name 3 times in the mirror, she'll appear. But be careful. You might not just see a ghostly queen. You might see the faces of the martyrs, the firelight of the stake, and the shadows of a woman who never found peace in her life. So, say her name if you dare. I'm Elsie May. Thank you so much for watching today. If you enjoyed the podcast, please rate it. If you want to follow me on Instagram or watch me on YouTube, it's History in High Heels, all one word, _ the podcast. So it is History in High Heels _ the podcast. History in High Heels uploads new episodes every single Wednesday at 6 a.m. on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all other major podcast platforms. Thank you so much for listening today. Please remember to rate the podcast if you enjoyed. And next week, I've got another dark Halloween story up my sleeve. See you.